In our previous video titled Nordic Capital, we talked about Nordic Capital, a successful private equity firm from Sweden that invests in companies in Northern Europe and in North America. Well, MBK Partners is also a successful private equity firm, but it invests in completely different regions than Nordic Capital. MBK Partners has an exclusive focus on the North Asia markets, which include China, Japan, and South Korea. And MBK has been involved in deals with single asset continuation funds and GP stakes investing, two topics that we have recently talked about. So in this video, we will go into a little more detail about MBK Partners. We will talk about the history of MBK Partners, an example of a single asset continuation deal, the BHC deal. Then we will talk about MBK's recent sale to a GP stakes investor. And we'll end the video with a final thought. So let's get started with the history of MBK Partners. Back in 2005, a group of former Carlyle executives, including Michael Kim, founded a new private equity firm in Asia called MBK Partners. Over the years, MBK Partners has become one of the largest private equity firms in Asia, and it focuses on China, Japan, and South Korea, while raising both buyout funds and special situations funds. An example of one of MBK's buyouts would be the $6 billion Home Plus deal, where MBK, along with other investors, including CPP Investments, carved out Home Plus, the large supermarket chain in Korea, from Tesco. This occurred in 2015 and was the largest deal that MBK Partners had completed up to that time. If you're interested in learning more about carve-outs in Asia, please check out our video titled Private Equity in Japan, where we have more examples of Asian carve-outs. Now, an example of one of MBK's special situations deals would be the BHC deal, which is the deal we will focus on in this video. But before we do, if you want to learn more about special situations funds, please check out our video titled Private Capital equals Private Equity plus Private Debt plus what else? Okay, so let's dive deeper into the BHC deal. BHC is a large franchise operator that includes the BHC brand, which is one of the largest chicken franchises in Korea with over 1,500 stores. Back in 2018, MBK Partners invested in BHC through MBK's first special situations fund. Now, at the time, BHC wasn't in distress, but it was believed to be fairly undermanaged. A couple of years later, in December 2020, Ontario Teachers' Pension Plan invested alongside MBK Partners in BHC. And in September 2021, MBK led a GP-led secondary that moved BHC into a single asset continuation fund with the help of Partners Group. If you need a refresher on what a GP-led secondary is or what a single asset continuation fund is, please check out our video titled LP-led and GP-led Private Equity Secondaries. After BHC was moved to the Single Asset Continuation Fund, BHC acquired Outback Steakhouse Korea and is now looking to expand further into Southeast Asia. Since MBK Partners purchased BHC back in 2018, MBK Partners has transformed the business by focusing on profitability while being able to expand to new markets. Let's see how BHC continues to perform in the future. Now let's move on to MBK's sale to a GP stakes investor. Early in 2022, Dial Capital Partners, a firm that buys stakes in private equity firms, or in other words, buys GP stakes, paid roughly $1 billion to buy a stake in MBK Partners. The deal reportedly valued MBK Partners at approximately $9 billion. We explained GP stakes investing in our video titled Buying GP Stakes in Private Equity. But even though we did, we figured it's always helpful to work through an example And this deal with Dial Capital Partners and MBK Partners is a great example of a GP stakes investment. So let's recall the structure of a private equity fund where the limited partners, the LPs, the investors in the private equity fund, and the general partner, the GP, the private equity firm, have a limited partnership agreement to form a private equity fund. And this private equity fund will buy companies that will be portfolio companies of the private equity fund. And in exchange for running the private equity fund, the general partner gets compensated through management fees and performance fees. In this example, the general partner is MBK Partners. Now, in GP stakes investing, you have a GP stakes investor that buys a portion of the general partner. So the GP stakes investor will receive a portion of the benefits of the general partner, such as a portion of management fees and a portion of performance fees. In this deal, Dial Capital Partners is the GP stakes investor. Now, most private equity firms don't just have one private equity fund. They have many. Just like MBK Partners has multiple private equity funds, both buyout funds and special situations funds. So a GP stakes investor, in this case, Dial Capital Partners, will get a portion of the GP, in this case, MBK Partners, in all of the various private equity funds, including both buyout funds and special situations funds. Now, here's a final thought. MBK Partners is a great example for us to cover since we recently talked about both single asset continuation funds and GP stakes investing in private equity. Investors. There are many different ways to invest in private equity funds. In addition to primary and secondary venture capital, growth capital, and buyout funds, as well as fund of funds, there are also special situations funds, such as the special situations funds raised by MBK Partners. Single asset continuation funds, either accessed through a general secondaries fund or through a dedicated fund that only invests in single asset continuation funds, such as AltX Capital, and a GP stakes investment fund, a fund that buys stakes in GPs, such as Dial Capital Partners. In this video, we went into a little more detail on MBK Partners. We talked about the history of MBK Partners, an example of a single asset continuation fund deal, the BHC deal. Then we talked about MBK's recent sale to a GP stakes investor. Are there other private equity firms, such as MBK Partners, that you would like us to talk about? If so, please share them in the comments below.